Well, at least James Franklin has recruiting going in his favor, right? That's not the case, as Penn State just lost a top 100 prospect from the class of 2027.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That is right. You are locked on to Penn State football. And as always, thank you so much for checking out another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. My name is Zach Seyko, and I'm your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling. This is huge. I'm going to explain why this is a big deal, as top 15 receiver, top 100 overall prospect, Khalil Taylor, who was actually borderline a 5-star at one point in time in these early 2027 rankings, has seen enough from Penn State. He's decommitted. Is Kemon Spell, 5-star running back, which Penn State fans are very familiar with. Is he the next one to follow? But we got to explain what's going on here and why this is a big deal, obviously, for James Franklin and what his status is going forward for Penn State. Friendly reminder to let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. Be a part of the conversation. So Khalil Taylor decommits here on a Friday, October 10th, and this is a big deal. This is a player that gives you a spark at a position where you have had little to no success. And it continues to be like that. We just had a conversation the other day about wide receiver and running back as well, but wide receiver guys who deserve some playing time aren't getting any playing time. And then, well, the year before that, it was bad. And the year before that, it was even worse. And this was kind of the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, was that, okay, it's all going to be figured out because the 2026 class has a good group of wide receivers coming in, and they're still committed to Penn State. But 2027, that's a different group, led by Kemon Spell, 5-star running back, top 10 player overall in the nation, and then led by another player, similar caliber of Khalil Taylor, who is a consensus 4-star, but borderline top 50 in the overall, and consensus top 100. So you're losing an iconic player that could end up at Ohio State, could end up at Notre Dame. He's listed 8 schools that he's interested in, and the worst part is that Penn State is not even in that group. Again, wide receiver has not been a position. You see that as a high school prospect. You continue to see the issues that your future outlook could have to deal with if things aren't fixed. I'm sure it's more complicated than that. That Taylor's not looking at it as, oh, well, he's probably looking at Tyser Denmark and Kobe Howard not getting playing time, and he's worried about, this is still, right, 1.5, 2 years away. This is the class of 2027 that we are reacting to, so keep that in mind. But it also just, Ohio State, if they want a wide receiver, they're going to push for a wide receiver, and they're going to have more leverage to get that commitment. It also goes back to, this is the class of 2027. Prospects are committing fairly early in this cycle. So no wonder you're going to see decommitments as it is. And we are going to talk about Kemon Spell in the upcoming segment, because that might be an issue there too, for Penn State to retain his commitment. Marcus Hagans, it brings him into question, of course, because he's been leading this group. This is year 3. And, for the longest time, I could say, okay, well, in 2023, those weren't his players. He didn't recruit them. Okay. And then in 2024, okay, same thing. You're still dealing with a previous regime, a previous staff member who built this room. You're kind of cleaning up the mess. Now these are your players. This is really your responsibility. And Hagans is a good recruiter, which is why you're seeing the plus in 2026. And you see a great start in 2027. But I got to be honest here that Hagans wasn't fully involved or solely involved in this recruitment for Khalil Taylor. There was a lot of heavy lifting done by Terry Smith. Well, why is Terry Smith recruiting a Khalil Taylor? Taylor's from the Pittsburgh area. Okay? Terry Smith has Pittsburgh on lockdown. So if you need a Pittsburgh prospect to come over to Penn State, Terry Smith is basically in charge of the western side of Pennsylvania. If you want a prospect, which is where Khalil Taylor's from, J1 Sider / now Stan Drayton taking over. Okay, Kemon Spell's also from that Pittsburgh area, but Terry Smith just knows how to recruit from the Pittsburgh area. So you can leverage Terry Smith in this instance, but it wasn't solely Marcus Hagens. And I look at that as he needs the extra help. Why does he need the extra help to retain or gain a commitment here at this wide receiver spot? Is there more to this than just a wide receiver decommitting from Penn State? I think Taylor's reevaluating his options. I don't think he sees a future at Penn State. And like I said, he didn't include Penn State in a brand new top 8. Penn State's nowhere to be found. So he's completely out on Penn State. This isn't just, I'm reopening my recruitment. This is a full decommitment, which is surprising to me. Is this a sign of things really spiraling out of control here for Penn State? Because this is a big deal for James Franklin. James Franklin, one of his last points of emphasis or last points of leverage here is that he can recruit. I have a top 5 class brewing in 2027. I have a solid class in 2026. Do you really want to buy me out of my contract? Do you really want to try to push me to another job? You lose all of that. Well, if the players are going to decommit, if you're not going to get those talented prospects, then what does Franklin have as leverage when it comes to recruiting? They can get other wide receivers at the end of the day. Matthew Gregory, there is a prediction from On3 Rivals and he's one of the top players in Pennsylvania. So Khalil Taylor isn't the only receiver that they can. Sure, it stings. It absolutely stings. You're losing a top 100 player, top 10 wide receiver, give or take, consensus top 15, but could absolutely evolve. He's talented. He was playing against smaller Pittsburgh area high schools and then goes up to a Pine Richland, which is a 5A school. So the talent's essentially doubled. You can maybe even argue triple. The competition has tripled for Taylor, and he has 8 touchdowns in 6 or 7 games, and he missed the season opener. The dude's legit. The guy's for real. You're losing a talented player. You're losing a player out of the Pittsburgh area. You can certainly recover if you're Penn State. But one of the last points of emphasis, one of the last points of leverage that James Franklin has is his ability to recruit and maintain the program as it is. That, okay, well, the future's still set up for success. If you're going to lose Khalil Taylor, if you're going to lose Kemon Spell, which we will talk about in the next segment, then how much leverage does Franklin have at this point to say, I'm still the answer for Penn State? And that's the question that it begs. Again, they can rebound. I'm not going to completely say that this is the end-all, be-all because it's one prospect. Penn State can fix things by getting a commitment from a Matthew Gregory, for example, or Kemon Spell is teammates with a 4-star wide receiver at McKeesport High School. His name's Javian Robinson. Could you land those 2 wide receivers and maybe someone else? And again, this is the class of 2027. But Penn State, this is a class that was supposed to be that kind of caliber. Top 10, maybe even top 5. Brian Smith, recruiting expert here we have on as a guest routinely, talked about, hey, this could be a top 3 group. If you're able to get the quarterback you're targeting, keep Kemon Spell, you had Khalil Taylor, well, you don't anymore, but you add players that go along with it. This makes it more difficult to get that 5-star quarterback in Elijah Haven that Penn State is targeting because they missed on all the other targets. It just makes this more of an uphill battle. I'm eager to see how Penn State responds. The first thing that they need to do in order to respond to this decommitment is see how things are with Kemon Spell. Because right now, if you told me to make a prediction at this point in time, whether or not he stays committed to Penn State or goes somewhere else, the odds are in favor that he goes somewhere else. We're going to talk about the evidence why that is the case coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by SupplyHouse. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with SupplyHouse. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business are available. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Do you need parts fast for a project? SupplyHouse has next day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters, and their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit SupplyHouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's SupplyHouse.com. Real people, real service. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet. Put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel gives you so many ways to play. You can build parlays, you can try player props, you can even follow the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. And whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. And yes, lines are available for Penn State versus Northwestern over at FanDuel. Penn State is a heavy favorite. 22.5 points on the spread, minus 2,300 on the money line, plus 1,060 if you're thinking Northwestern. The total sits at 47.5. If you like those lines, you can bet them over at FanDuel or the FanDuel app. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Will five-star running back Kemon Spell be the next to decommit from Penn State? It's looking, it's a fine margin of 50-50, but it's looking like it's trending in the wrong direction here. And it was trending in the wrong direction because he was entertaining a visit from Notre Dame, Ohio State, a bunch of other schools, Alabama. Now Georgia has jumped into the picture. They offered Kemon Spell. Kemon Spell promoted it because, as he should. He's a high school football player. He's a five-star, and every offer does mean something, especially when it comes from the Georgia Bulldogs or anywhere else. If Notre Dame hadn't offered him, I know J1 Sider's there, but I'm speaking in hypotheticals. If there was a school, USC offered him a little late. He talked about that one, but never really entertained that one. Okay, but this is different. A visit is set up with Georgia, and I know we just had this the last time, where he was setting up visits left and right. Notre Dame, Ohio State, all these other schools, Alabama, Florida State. Hey, he visited Penn State. He ended up canceling those. He ended up canceling that cluster of visits. Okay, things are all well. They're all good, right? Okay, now he's entertaining another visit, and he has it set up with Georgia. So Georgia immediately offers, and then he's set up to take the visit. Brian Smith has said this. This is a pretty loose translation of what he said, but five stars are going to five-star, meaning that they are going to take visits, they are going to entertain conversations, and it's not necessarily even their fault. It means that programs are going to continue to recruit them until their name is on the dotted line. It doesn't matter. Ohio State is not going to back off. Notre Dame with J1 Sider is certainly not going to back off because he's the one that got Kemon Spell to commit to Penn State to begin with. It makes James Franklin's job more difficult, and it makes Stan Drayton's job more difficult at this point in time. I mean, again, as it should. I think this is almost unfamiliar territory to an extent for Penn State, for honestly myself as a media member, but also fans too, because we're in the NIL space. We're in the new era with NIL and the transfer portal. Penn State has never had a top 10 player committed like this so far in advance. And so now we're kind of seeing the process that it takes to maintain his commitment and just how much of a hassle it is, how exhausting it can be if you're a fan and it's just, is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Is he going to stay? Why did you commit? And this is the territory that Penn State is getting into that we're all just kind of unfamiliar to an extent. This happens all the time at Texas. This happens all the time at Alabama. This happens all the time at Florida. It can happen at Ohio State. I can't speak for Notre Dame. It doesn't seem to happen like that routinely. But where 5-star players, they're going to 5-star. They're going to be interested in taking visits. And he's still a high school junior. But again, why does Spell keep entertaining the visits? You cancel the one cluster. Now you get an offer from Georgia. Now you're going to take the visit. That's what you have to question. It's leaning towards, and then you have the insult to injury here. You have the other decommitment. What does Spell think about that? They're both from the Pittsburgh area. Well, if you're decommitting, should I decommit? He's not going to base his decision on one other player's decisions. But if the group that he was supposed to be a part of is starting to fall apart in some cases, I don't blame Spell for entertaining another opportunity, another decision, or just hedging his bets, so to speak, if he doesn't think Penn State is going to be the same Penn State that he committed to. And it already isn't when Sider's over at Notre Dame, and now you're working with Stan Drayton. We are in an interesting era in college football where nothing's officially official until you get to December with National Signing Day. And while it is great to have players committed, you don't know until they're actually, and then there's the transfer portal, right? So you can't even look forward to, we can look forward to this player for the next 4 years. It's so difficult. But as a Penn State fan, or hey, let's talk about the point of view of the Penn State coaching staff. You are not going to like this. You are not going to like Kemon Spell taking a visit to Georgia, especially when the program is trending in the wrong direction. It's not going in the right direction. So it adds insult to injury here. I've talked about in the past how players are recruiters themselves. And when you lose a top 100 player like Khalil Taylor, you don't know. We don't know. Okay, it is truly a 50-50 toss-up because I could be wrong in reading too much into this again, that, hey, this is just another visit. This is no different than Ohio State. Maybe Penn State gets him to cancel it again. But if he follows through, he enjoys the visit at Georgia, things change, things are different. It's a new dynamic that Penn State fans, whether or not James Franklin is the head coach long term, because that is to be determined, right? But if Penn State is going to recruit 5-stars and get them to commit earlier than they should, this is what you're going to deal with. Texas deals with this. Alabama deals with this. Sometimes they'll flip, sometimes they don't. So it is truly a 50-50 case with Kemon Spell here. Again, it doesn't look good that he's entertaining Georgia and he's going to follow through with the visit. It doesn't look good. So time will tell what's going to happen here. Khalil Taylor decommitting doesn't help Penn State's case. Kemon Spell entertaining visits once again, and you still have another full year to try to fend off these other schools from recruiting him. It doesn't look good. It doesn't play into Penn State's favor. And we'll see how it all unfolds. It's not a good moment for Penn State right now. It really adds, as I've said, insult to injury. And we'll see how it goes from there. My name is Zach Seyko. I'm your host of Locked On Nittany Lions. As always, thank you so much for joining me on this episode to talk recruiting and the implications of it, as Penn State can fix things or can really spiral out of control in this moment. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Leave a like, share it with friends and family, and if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams.